You just get the feeling that the Fed is bottling it every time. You know, they're looking for data, it's data dependent. The data is staring themselves in the face that, you know, we're in the middle of quite a good economy with a few wobbles here and there. But they just don't want to move. And I can't see them doing anything really this year, maybe in December. But the answer to that, if you're following that analysis, is that the markets are going to continue to go up.
I suppose, you know, they say they're data dependent, but you kind of wonder what data they're absorbing and latching onto nowadays. It's not supposed to be external events. It's not supposed to be Greece, things like that.
Well, that's right. And the dollar, I mean, we all think the Fed has some special source of information, but they're acting as if they're getting it 1 or 2 days before us. I mean, they have probably the most sophisticated economic modeling group in the world at their disposal, and yet they still can't seem to come up with anything more than a month-by-month view.
Right.
It's actually extraordinary, and I wonder if, you know, Yellen's honeymoon is rapidly coming to a close. We'll maybe see tonight in her talk. But I wonder if it's at the end.
There's some debate within the Fed now going on whether they should be more, they should telegraph to the markets their intent more. Why are we still having this discussion over intent and dissemination of information? I thought they'd gone to we're data dependent. So if you're looking at the data, you know what we're looking at.
Yeah, you do it, or you have some hurdles, or you have some benchmarks, or something. But I think the Fed has actually been trying to signal its intent. And that was the whole idea behind guidance, and even under Ben Bernanke, the forward guidance, you know, we're going to do this. The problem is their intent seems to change with every meeting. And that's not just good enough with the markets. You know, broadly, we're in a situation where they should be saying, yes, rates are going to go up under these conditions. To my mind, those conditions have largely been met. Right. Clearly, they don't think so. And they're following that particular route. But what they need to do is actually now to start providing some guidance, because when they do raise rates, which may be December, maybe March, maybe, you know, who knows when, the longer it goes on for, the worse it's going to get.
Right. At this point, I think we can maybe pretty much wipe out the Fed as a spoiler for the markets. Wouldn't that be correct? I mean, whenever they get around to that, and I'm sorry to prolong this agony, Richard, but when they finally get around to the first 25-point hike in 8 years, they're going to be so scared and so wary of its impact that they're going to wait after that.
That's the problem.
A long stretch before
it gets
firing
harder.
again. Right?
That's right. It gets harder and harder.
They missed their window. I think somebody told me they've missed their window.
I've got that feeling too. You know, there was a time when the market could probably say 25 basis points. Let's do the numbers.
Yeah, what the hey?
It's not really much of a problem. 50 basis points, even 75. Okay, interest rates going up, and oil's come down. Okay, we can trade that off. But the longer we go on for, the more it becomes a bigger deal, and the more that 25 basis points is going to be a problem.
Okay, so if this is making them shy, if this is making them very introverted about, you know, what to do, this should be a green flag for the markets then, because the markets are very, very tentative.
Yeah, pro tem.
We're getting record highs, but unconvincing.
Yes, they are unconvincing, but there's not an awful lot of economic data to actually say, hey, we ought to be diving in. But, you know, Europe's picking up. Most of the rest of the world isn't expensive. We're not in bubble territory, although certain parts of China might be at some of the PEs. So I think the markets will continue. While interest rates are low, conditions of business are excellent.
Yeah, and we're in it. We're learning. We've learned in the past few days we're once again in a glut situation, an over supply situation in oil, and the folks over at where was it, Goldman, said 45 a barrel by October. I mean, we got a second chance at a windfall right now. Savings on energy that could be used elsewhere.
It could be, although those figures, you know, 1 2-week period, oh no, there isn't enough oil. The next 2-week period, there's too much. So oil's probably going to settle around 55, 60, 65, something like that. Yeah. But the key thing is that's still a heck of a lot lower than it was last year. So that dividend is still going to come through, and probably will for another 6 to 12 months.